Welcome to another episode of Legal for Tech, the podcast. So, guys, you recognize my voice. It's always Rosie here. And as I've said many times, this is just a group of students and young professionals who are just very interested in technology. And yes, today especially, it's regulation. So, I'm joined by my colleague and friend, Giacomo One, actually. Hello, Giacomo.
Nice to see you again. It's been a long time that we don't see our.
On your side, actually.
Yeah.
Anyways, and today we are interviewing a very esteemed friend of the podcast. I'm super excited. I say that very often, but like this time is super excited because we are finally speaking to Joost Gerritsen. Hello, Joost.
Hi, thank you for this warm introduction. It's really an honor to be here. I think you guys do a great job, so I'm very happy to be a part of this podcast.
Well, we are happier, I can assure you. And I want to invite you to tell all of our listeners exactly what brought you here to this podcast and in general to your field of study.
Well, your podcast. Well, first and foremost, you guys have really nice, positive presence on LinkedIn. And I think what's good is what I really like about how you guys communicate on LinkedIn. It's that I can tell at first glance that you guys really know what you are doing. It's not, how do you say, just some dropping some legal buzzwords, but no, you guys you really read laws, case law, and are trying to learn more about data protection and related fields, and it shows. So that for me, that was one of the main reasons. I mean, I get requests quite often for podcast interviews, etc. Um, but I like to speak and to have a conversation with like-minded people, or at least people who are also active in the field who want to learn things about, in this case, data protection. And even though we just met briefly, I think we are in the same. We are operating on the same frequency. Do you can you confirm this, or hopefully this makes any sense?
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. As I said, this is a great pleasure. And I mean, we follow your content and we know that we are in the same vibe, if you may say that.
Yeah. I leave the cool for the young people. No, yeah, we have. I think we have a good vibe, and yeah, I mean, LinkedIn, social media platform. Hate it or love it, but with good content, you can really enjoy it. And I think you guys provide good content, which means that and I'm sure others as well enjoy it. So thank you for that.
Okay, so first things first, our listeners love your work, also us. Many of them know you for the wonderful news that you bring them on LinkedIn. What made you realize that you wanted to undertake this kind of content-based initiative?
Yeah. So what I try to do, maybe it's good to say to the listeners, because yeah, for people who don't know me, I am a lawyer based in the Netherlands. But to be honest, I don't practice law that much because I did it for 15 years. But right now I'm more focused on digital, and I think we'll talk about that later on. But I was always, even before I was a lawyer, I mean, I promised Rosalia not to start with my birth more than 40 years ago. But I think as long as I can remember, I was hooked on at a computer. I mean, we had a computer quite early back at home, personal computer. Back then, you had the green screen, very bad sounds, no colors, and no internet. It was pre-internet days. Um, of course, this is nothing special for people from yeah, who was born in the 80s. But yeah, even without those cool things like we have right now, smartphones, internet, etc., I was hooked using the computer, especially playing computer games. Word perfect, you know, typing books, typing stories, typing manuals, and that kept continuing. So even though at some point I studied law, I am not really if you look at my heart, I'm not really a real lawyer, as in I'm more a nerd. I'm more a fond user of computers and technology. And I think like most people, I'm not sure like most people, but I had a hard time studying law. I thought it was really boring, and I couldn't, yeah, really find my way. I thought a lot of times, should I continue doing the study? But at some point, so let's fast forward to I think it was 2008, yeah, or seven, maybe 2007. I came across this course given at the Utrecht University, great university by the way, and it was called Internet and the Law. And to be honest, up until that point, I didn't even know that there was like something like that, that there was a crossover between the law, legal aspects, that legal questions that raised doing commerce online. I think a lot of case law back then was about people commenting on forums. That was, I think, also pre-Facebook time. Hate speech online, but also like fraud, e-commerce fraud. And I never realized there was such a thing as internet law. And from that moment on, finally, and it was almost in my last year, I really liked studying law, just because finally um, I realized that I could that there was, like, so to speak, a marriage about between my hobby as a computer nerd and the field of law, the study I was doing. And then I asked my teacher, so hey, what should I do if I want to yeah, investigate this field of law more, internet law? And she forwarded me to the Institute of Information Law. Really nice. I would, if students are listening, and if they, yeah, you don't, if I'm not sure if you have to live in the Netherlands. Well, at some point you have, of course, but I can recommend everybody, if you want your master's focused on internet law, technology and law, but also IP law, please go to Amsterdam, University of Amsterdam, because that's where you can find the Institute of IVIR, yeah, the Institute for Information Law. Great teachers, great co-students. And before I knew it, I graduated, and I was really sad because I enjoyed it a lot. But this was 2009, I think, 2010. Then I became a lawyer for 15 years. Also, I still have my own law firm called Legal Beetle. But like I said, in 2000, was it again? I think, yeah, 1.5 years ago, we started DG Beetle, and we will talk about that later on. Otherwise, like I said, I won't. I promise that I won't tell everything about how I started. We will come to that later. But yeah, and DG Beetle, the knowledge platform, it is a really nice tool. And also I try to not only to promote the tool, but during the whole time, yeah, when I talked about, I studied in Utrecht and then in Amsterdam, I was also always online and using Twitter. Well, it was fun. Right now, it's like a horrible place to be. Uh, and also like forums. I mean, I listen to music a lot. So if you want to find like-minded people online, you can find them on forums. I keep saying forums. Does it ring a bell to you guys if I say online forum, or do you think no, we use Facebook?
Absolutely.
What the hell do you mean with forum?
For me, yes, actually. I don't know for
Okay.
Rosie.
Yeah, I could be too young for that, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the forum, I mean, I want to explain this for a little bit. I mean, it is like the most basic form of communicating online. I think another word would be something like a bulletin board. So you post something online, and I think a characteristic of a forum is that there's always one or more administrators. So people who or moderators who keep everybody in check, especially whether or not you follow the rules of the forum. So if you, I don't know, say something horrible to someone else, most likely that would infringe the house rules of the forum. And then a moderator would step in and say, "Hey, Joost, stop saying names to that person. This forum is about music, so stick to the topic, and don't I don't know, say horrible things about other people, whatever. So that was a world I grew up into, and then at some point you got Twitter and Facebook, and now of course I'm really active on LinkedIn. That was actually your question. Um, a world without moderators, or at least I cannot see them. I think most is done by algorithms. Who knows? But back then, it were simpler times. I mean, if you crossed the line, there was a real person that said to you, "Joost, don't do that," and it was very helpful and really nice time. And now, right now, I try to uh, convey the positive memories I have of on posting on forums on LinkedIn as well. Don't like to be too negative about things. I mean, it can have its purpose, but sometimes on LinkedIn I see people. Well, especially I'm allergic to people who think they know everything on LinkedIn. If we talk about data protection professionals, right? I mean, uh, I will quit everything. I will go with a pension if at some point I think I know everything, and I hope that moment will never occur. I mean, you should keep, at least I can only speak for myself, but I want to learn. I want to investigate. I want to talk with other people, and yeah, luckily on LinkedIn, I found a lot of people who think the same way, and I have a lot of nice conversations. So I cross my fingers, like I said, Twitter or X as it is called right now. It's no fun anymore, but LinkedIn is it's really it's great. And yeah, you have this occasional persons who think they know it all, but it's easy to ignore them. I mean, there's no right to an online interaction, right? No, for 99%, I really like LinkedIn, and hopefully it stays that way the coming years.
So we start from forum, now we are on LinkedIn. And I will
Yeah,
also add, I know that I don't know. But I mean, you have been spreading awareness competently, looking into so many topics. It's so difficult to discern. Many of our listeners work in the field of data protection, and some have been asked to deal with all sorts of tech questions, many of which exceed the realm of data protection. What advice would you give to them? Is data protection enough?
yeah, a good question. I mean, yeah, so Giacomo, correct me if I'm wrong, but I summarize your question as if you are like an advisor in the field of data protection, and let's say your employer or your client ask you something that does not directly relate to data protection, but maybe technology related, who knows? And I think that, well, that's at least how I learned working in the business. Just say yes to everything. So
Mhm.
it sounds a bit strange, but I mean, if so right now, like I said, I don't know everything, and that's perfectly fine. But I do know stuff about a lot of different topics. Why? Because um, I always said yes, and you have to be a bit, especially towards young people. I would advise that yeah, just say yes, and then buy yourself some time. So if the client or your employer says, "Hey, do you know something about Bitcoin?" For example, that is a topic I don't know. I don't know a lot about it. I would just say, yes, sure, Bitcoin, I can investigate and give you an answer. I will come to it to you, let's say next week. I mean, otherwise you have to answer directly, and then you're probably in big trouble. And a week is more than enough for for you to investigate. Um, as you will progress during your career, at least that's what I noticed, is that a lot of these laws have certain things in common, and there's an idea behind it, and the way they are written, and this can take years and years, and it's hard for me to explain, but let's say if you worked with a regulation on AI, for example, AI Act, it will be relatively easy for you to understand the regulation about medical devices because it's almost similarly drafted, both about products. And you can also say the same about, let's say, the GDPR. Okay, but let's say your employer or your client has a question about law enforcement directive. So that's the European directive that deals with that. Now let's call it police data. You should just say yes to that question if you have to advise on it, because if you read the law enforcement directive, you will see a lot of similarities with the GDPR. And same is true with the EU DPR. That's the GDPR for the EU institutions. Um, of course, there are limits. If someone asks you, for me, it's labor law and stuff like maybe immigration law, criminal law maybe, but you have to challenge yourself. And if you keep thinking within the silo of the GDPR, I think that's a bit uh, risky also for yourself because you will miss out on not only on learning opportunities, but let's say these days customers, clients, your employer, if they have questions, they are rarely they fit rarely in one field of law. Mostly they touch upon one, two, three, maybe more. Uh, and if you are only focused on the GDPR, I think you will miss out on a lot of things. Hopefully, this makes any sense. I can elaborate on this more, but do you recognize this? Maybe when you have to deal with questions, or
I feel that there is a kind of like, because you have described regulations that are like at least based on the same principle as you said, and then you like advise to open your mind up and kind of like see it with an open-minded kind of approach. I think what causes a lot of trouble in DPOs is having to interpret, for example, the AA Act, which is a risk-based regulation with the mindset of the GDPR, which is, on the other hand, a rights-based regulation. And I think in that case, as you said, the best advice you can give is opening up your mind, because obviously it's always law. And if you
yeah.
kind of understand it's a different kind of approach, you can basically understand it better. If you are attempting to write down a fundamental rights impact assessment using a data protection impact assessment, on the other hand, maybe it's not the best approach. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I totally agree. Open your mind, but also, if I might add, find the time to really read a law. This may sound a bit strange, but so I was talking about my study, and during my study, and like I said, this maybe sounds a bit weird. The first few years, I was really scared of the law, as in, I thought it was a lot of text, and I thought, yeah, it was written by, well, those must be really intelligent people, right? Who am I? Just like a small fish in the pond to even think that I can gain or yeah be on that same level as the people who wrote the law. So I had this really weird relation towards the law, but at some point, and this is something I learned at the Institute of Information Law, it is just work written by people, and that's really a big for me it was an eye opener. And you can say, Joost, well, why didn't you realize this sooner? But as soon as you understand that it is not magic, it is not a force of nature, and that is true for the technology a law wants to regulate. Let's say artificial intelligence, it's made by people, um, and the law also is made by people, and people can make mistakes. They can write silly things, stupid things, and in case of the law, hopefully mostly smart things. But as you realize, okay, this is just a work made by someone like me, uh, and let's just read this law from, well, not from A to Z, not from top to bottom, because that can be overwhelming as well, but just let's start with the table of contents. What are the chapters here? what message does the writer wants to convey, and take your time. For example, I almost had the same feeling a short while ago. I was asked to write an article on the Data Act, and it's still on part of the peer review process. So hopefully it will make the finish line. But I have high hopes. And with the Data Act, I was a bit not really. I thought, oh man, we have this large law again, digital law from Europe, and almost I got scared again, like I was a student. But then, okay, I reminded myself, no, this is just written by people. Maybe those people don't understand technology at all, or maybe could very well be, right? But I think in this case they did a good job. But I start reading with the table of contents, so to get an idea what is this all about. And at some point I started reading, and I thought, hey, but this is actually what it says is A, not that complex, and B, a lot of stuff in there. If you are familiar with telecommunications law, for instance, telecommunications law has this notion of interoperability. Uh, that's like fancy legal speak for two products or two systems that can understand each other, talk with each other, IT systems. And I knew that from reading about the telecoms law back in the day. And then I read all those terms like interoperability, standards, etc. Again, but now in the Data Act. So then everything fell in place. The puzzle in my head became more complete, and that is just a feeling I would. I hope that everybody has that feeling. If you address a new law, and if you are a data protection officer, for instance, so the Data Act, for those who are not aware of this, touches upon several subjects, one of which is Internet of Things. So if you are a so an Internet of Things is like every piece of hardware you can connect with the internet. So that can be like your smartphone, or maybe smart glasses. You have them these days, but also like a Tesla, which is basically a computer on wheels, right?
Other cars are available.
Sorry, other cars. Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, we do not. This is not a testimonial for Tesla. No. You caught me off guard there, but you are totally right, Rosalia. Um, so if you are a data protection officer and you get a question about Internet of Things, don't say or don't react with, oh, but that's out of my realm, because yeah, well, maybe it can be that the question only deals with non-personal data. It's very well possible. Uh, but hopefully you will react with, oh, Internet of Things, rings a bell. Data Act, let me get back to you in 1 week, 2 weeks. I have to study law, and I will give you an answer. That's what I encourage people to do. But the only way to do that is to, yeah, like I said, or like you said, Rosalie, I like to reuse your words, that you have to be open-minded to those new laws. And yeah, this I just talked about the Data Act. Of course, we have the Data Governance Act. I was always also a bit scared of I say I'm scared a lot of the times, but it's not that
I'm scared of the laws too, I have to be honest.
yeah, scared in a professional way of cybersecurity law, because I'm not a cybersecurity expert. I would never call myself that. But when I start reading the NIS2 directive, is that the abbreviation you guys also use? The Network Information Systems 2
Correct.
directive, yeah. And I start reading it again. By the way, it's really, really well written. It's not that technical as you might expect in the first place. And then when I read it, I thought, this all makes really good sense. And basically, it's just the first real try, apart from its predecessor, of course, the NIS1 directive, try to regulate cybersecurity, and saying to board of directors, hey guys, this is not a topic for, let's say, something to outsource somewhere down below in the organization. No, you as a board member, you are responsible for a really efficient implemented cybersecurity policy. So even those guys and girls cannot say, oh, cybersecurity, oh, digital law, like the NIS2 directive. That's not my cup of tea. No, but everybody has to know at least something about one of these laws. And yeah, back to your question, Giacomo, what advice would you give to them? Be curious and don't be scared. It can be hard, but yeah, that would be in a nutshell my advice.
I know this is a bit of a skipping to other topics, but something that makes people very scared is something you've been working around in the past months, I think, because I've seen your posts coming up very slowly, and it is the topic of deepfakes. And this is particularly important because they are gaining a huge momentum in being part of our political life. And of course, that's scary enough, but as well in part of our more intimate life. We know that there have been people that have been terribly affected by the use of deepfakes in terms of pornography and confidential images. So um, what
Yeah.
do you think is the best way to regulate deepfakes? And would you go with a general type of like blanket ban or like ban all AIs that are able to produce deepfakes? I don't know, I'm going very hyperbolic here. Or would you rather regulate it in each single of its misuses? So in the political sphere as well as in the kind of image sharing sphere and then the crimes related to pornography.
Mm. Yeah, really good question and really interesting topic. So, yeah, deep fakes. I think the listener or viewer knows what it is, but I think to reiterate, it is mostly generated AI. Yeah, it's always involves AI, right? AI generated can be images, voice, video, and the gist of it is that the outcome of the AI generation, well, for you as a human, you cannot or almost cannot see whether or not it is a genuine photo or telephone call, video, simply because the generated output looks really real. And they call it a deep fake because, well, the image or the video or the voice for that matter, those are fakes. And it's deep because I think it uses deep learning, right? Is that why? Yeah, that's why we call it deep fakes. Um, and I think, yeah, I can tell you a little bit about my research regarding deepfakes. I think it was already 2 years ago. I'm sorry, I'm really bad with years, but anyways, a while ago, the Rathenau Institute was really a good institute in The Hague, in the Netherlands. They were commissioned by the European Parliament, among others. I mean, there were other writers as well, to inform the Parliament about about this topic, deepfakes. I played a small part of it, investigated several subtopics. So I helped them a little bit, the Rathenau Institute. But for me, and I think that's also a thing that I really like working for the Rathenau Institute because they ask me things as a lawyer, as a legal researcher. Hey, Joost, what do you think about it? In this case, it was deepfakes. And back then I was like, yeah, deepfakes. Okay, that sounds like a fun little technology. Uh, I didn't really have negative feelings about it or whatever until I investigated and read and learned more and more about it. Um, Already back then, you had divorce cases. So um, I'm now going to generalize a little bit, but in a divorce case, you have like two fighting people. I mean, at some point in time, they loved each other, but before the court, before the judge, they hate each other and they want to get rid of each other. Well, in a legal way, right? So what happens a lot of the time is that the man or the woman or vice versa, whatever, want to discredit the other party for whatever reason. And in this case, I think it was a case from England, if I remember correctly. Uh, the I'm not sure if it was the man or the female. well, either way, one of the parties wanted to discredit the other one by handing over voice calls, and in those voice calls, presumably the other party was cussing, threatening, etc. All those unlawful things against the party who wanted to make a point about this. So this was handed over as evidence towards the judge. But at some point, it was revealed that those voice calls were deep fakes, because the person you would hear on the audio never said those horrible things ever. So, and that was already, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. That was already happening. Back then, it was discovered. But if we realize that now we are 2, 3 years later, the technology has become more and more refined. To be honest, I don't know how about you guys. Can you still see the difference between like a really hyper-realistic AI generated image and a photograph? Or
It's becoming harder and harder, I have to be honest.
yeah, yeah,
I think that the one that was crazy is that like Instagram model who is what's her name? A Tana, I think.
I can't.
okay,
Yeah,
Anyways, yeah, and she really looks real. Like she looks like a very pretty girl.
okay,
And then like you go check it out. She's like, I'm in the AI state of mind or whatever. Like it doesn't
yeah,
state I'm an AI, And
uh-huh,
then you kind of realize like it's not a real person. Like how they do it is like they make a normal girl take a picture and then they modify it by basically applying onto the picture the image of this AI model. So it looks real because it's a person posing behind it. But
yeah,
it's totally fake. And I mean
uh,
any girl seeing that profile will think, oh, I'm simply not enough because
yeah,
she's perfect, but she's
there
also AI.
is also the
Like,
part, the fun part, that there was full of message from football players in the DM of
do you
this
want to date me?
user.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they thought she was real. So
I see. Oh, okay, yeah, but
No,
then
do check her out on Instagram.
uh,
It's crazy. Like it's
uh,
honestly a crazy story. I think it's borderline legal to be honest. But
well,
anyway,
that's where we are right now. I didn't know about this example, but yeah, I think it shows that now we are 2, 3 years further in time, and it is hard. At least it is hard for football players to recognize whether or not somebody is an AI. No, but all jokes aside, especially maybe you can see it sometimes, but especially voice has become really good. You can just based on a snippet of someone's voice, I think 30 seconds is enough, maybe even shorter. You can clone, so to speak, someone's voice and make, for example, my voice say whatever you want. And you can imagine this is used already by fraudsters, by people with malicious intent, um, uh, trying to no, not trying, but they call your family, posing as me, saying, "Oh, mom, dad, I need money." And how on earth would my parents even realize that it is not me? That they probably won't hear the difference. Um, yeah, so I think the issue is huge. And back then, when I wrote, helped with the European Parliament's report about deepfakes, um, already back then we looked at each other and said, "Well, this is huge. This technology can have such a negative impact." Yes, there are positive appliances you can think about. Yeah, I mean, let's say, because I record webinars myself to inform legal professionals about, let's say, the Data Act or the AI Act or whatever. Uh, Sometimes I'm a little bit tired. So I thought lately maybe I should clone myself, and I just give myself, my virtual self, a script, and then my virtual self would present the webinar. I think a lot of people will get angry if they discover it. So I refrain from this plan. But I mean, there are use cases where you can think of, well, maybe this is positive. Who knows? Also, I think, was it in the news today or yesterday? A deep fake was used. I think, was it an American court case where the suspect was confronted by a video. So the suspect was suspected of killing someone. Then, of course, you have a criminal court case, and the family of the victim, who, yeah, it was a murder victim, so the person doesn't live anymore, used images from their deceased family member to make a video based on his his appearance, and showed that video to the suspect. And in that video, uh, the victim, the deceased victim, speaks from the grave, and tells a whole story about, yeah, I forgive you, etc., and I wish you wouldn't hadn't killed me, etc. And yeah, that is also a use. I mean, for me, this raises all kinds of ethical questions. Please, for the record, if I die, don't make an AI or deepfake from me. Here, I forbid everyone to do so. But it happens, and it can have its uses. But apart from these, yeah, you really have to find them with the binoculars. Positive applications of deepfakes, I see mostly negative impacts, and I think the European Parliament agreed with us, and they said a lot of things about deepfakes. But one of the things that stood out for me is that they said, well, it's uh, a huge, it's a great potential, sorry, potentially a great uh, harmful technology for our democracy. So that's quite, those are really like big words, but I agree, because if we don't know what kind of evidence in the courts is real or not, if we don't know whether or not the votes which have been cast in elections are real or not, or at least done by real people, if we don't have a common understanding about the truth and facts, etc. And of course, this whole discussion fits within the post-truth era and fact-free policy, etc. If we are going down that path, and deepfakes will strengthen, or I would say, leads to a greater impact of that fact-free policy and the post-truth era. Yeah, that of course that is a huge negative impact on democracy. And then, and maybe this is a little bridge to the AI Act. So when I heard, okay, now we have the AI Act, it says something about the deep fakes. Yeah, okay, great. But what does it say about deep fakes? The only thing it says, yeah, you have to label deep fakes. That's it. And I thought that was a little bit disappointing. For at the one hand, you say it can be the biggest threat to democracy. Oh wow, that sounds really horrible. What do you want to do against it? Yeah, oh, just label a deep fake. And I think that's a bit meager, so to speak.
But wouldn't you say that if not labeled, they are necessarily manipulative, thus forbidden under the prohibited practices in Article 5?
Yeah. So, oh, okay. Well, you guys really know your stuff. Now I have to. I don't have my AI Act book at hand, but indeed, in Article 5, you have these prohibited practices. One is about manipulative and deceitful AI, but how is it written? It has a lot of ifs and buts. Um, that is a good question. If you don't label deepfake, would it automatically, I mean, hopefully I translate your question correctly, or your remark. Would it automatically be prohibited um, under the Article 5 of the AI Act? Well, it is a really legal answer. It depends, because it has to meet the prohibition, all these factors mentioned in Article 5. I did a webinar on this, I think, last year, but to be honest, I forgot all the the little requirements mentioned in Article 5. Maybe you guys can look it up, but
And
I
I
mean,
think that the issue there is the significant impact upon the
yes,
human being.
yeah,
But I do think that, like, if you think of like deepfakes used in the political field, I mean, if it prevents you or manipulates you into expressing your voting rights, so your political rights. That's a huge impact upon the rights of a person, as well as if you think of course, pornography. I mean, I can't think of a greater impact than intruding your body and yourself and your personal kind of expression as a human being. I mean, that's even dignity if I can stretch it to that point. So on the like I think still with the labeling it could still be prohibited because it could still be an kind of intrusion into my sphere, my rights. But if it's not labeled, for sure, if it then is used in the political field or in the criminal law field, I don't see how it cannot be under Article
Which,
5.
but
Maybe
which,
I'm right. Wrong.
no, I was wondering which specific provision are you thinking about of Article 5? So you have the A is about manipulative or deceptive techniques. So that can be a contestant, but it has quite some, like I said, ifs and buts. It says those techniques have to have the objective or the effect or materially distorting the behavior of a person or a group of person by appreciably impairing their ability to make an informed decision, thereby causing them to take a decision they would not have otherwise taken in a manner, breathing pause, that causes or is reasonably likely to cause that person, another person, or a group of persons significant harm. And I think only one of all those ifs and buts are if those conditions are not met, then it's not, and then it does not, it is not prohibited. So yeah, I would say, and what would be a typical example you think of, or at least what you hope is forbidden?
Like, for
Deep,
example, that image of Trump hugging the
yeah,
black guy that was going on around the American elections.
uh-huh,
I think so. If I were a black person, if I thought that Trump was a bit racist for obvious
yeah,
reasons,
uh-huh,
if I would probably think, oh, maybe I could vote for him because I kind of like his political message. And if he's not like, if he's agging a black person, maybe he's not that racist and he's actually changed his mind on specific things. And then I vote for him and I have Donald Trump as the president of my nation.
oh yeah,
Whatever your
Pope
views on
Trump
Trump
also we
are,
have, yeah? We have also Pope Trump.
we have also Pope Trump. That
Yep.
is
oh yeah.
bad.
But that one was
Good.
made by the president himself, right?
Yeah,
Or at
yeah.
least,
He uses
ah,
deepfakes a lot. He uses deepfakes that
really?
the whole video in Palestine of with the golden
Oh
statue.
gosh,
That was
horrible,
yeah,
horrible.
yeah.
I think your example, yeah, that could be an interesting example, and indeed fall within point A, because yeah, it's really about, especially if we talk about casting a vote, that's the same as making a decision, right? You decide
Mhm.
whether or not you vote for person A or B, and then you see this deepfake showing an image which puts you off balance. Oh, you wanted to vote for person A, but now maybe you're doubting your choice. Maybe you should go for B or vice versa. Yeah, it could be. But then, and so I agree with you, Rosalia. This is a good example. I'm a bit of a collector of prohibited AI examples. So this will be in the collection because I have this.
I want the Rosalia mention next to it. It will be
Yeah,
the Rosalia deepfake.
definitely because no, I'm trying to think of as many examples possible that will fit in Article 5 because I still maybe you hear it in my voice that I still have a bit trouble applying those prohibited practices. Yeah, and in this case, more generally speaking about deepfakes, yeah, the problem is that the technology already exists, and especially the malicious actors, they don't care about, well, regulations in the general sense, and the AI Act, well, they couldn't care less about it, and it's a bit hard. So in, let's say I would have a magic wand, yeah, I would try to uh, yeah, ban all deepfake technology there is, or at least the people who want to use that technology in a malicious way. but unfortunately I can't. So what's the next best thing? It's the law. Yeah. So
We
this
need a new regulation on deepfake at this point. Just a brand new regulation just for deep.
no, I would
The
no.
Deepfakes Act.
No, I
Yeah.
don't. Well, you could make an act, but I would say you should focus that act on educating people as one of the most important things. So the deepfake topic has a lot of similarities with the fake news topic, right? I mean, these days, all these actors, big actors, state actors from around the world, they want to influence. Well, speaking about elections, they want to influence elections, but not only that, they want to influence our hearts and minds, and mostly in a direction that's not in line with democracy or the rule of law. All right, this happens online a lot. And I think Finland was one of the countries that's used to that kind of propaganda for years and years now. They are always a target of it for all kinds of reasons. And they are quite successful in countering fake news online by teaching children, but also older people, youngsters, older than that, uh, not only how to recognize fake information, because you cannot always recognize this. Propagandists are really smart. They try to wrap their message into a few things that are true, but the main gist of the article is untrue. So if you would read it, you think, yeah, that's true, that's true, that's true. But the way it is written, the context, and the subconscious conclusion you would draw from an article is untrue. And it's really hard for you to recognize, but you can teach people to think critically for themselves. And I think, and I'm interested in hearing your guys' opinion, because I was a bit disappointed when so over the years, tutored is a big word, but I helped students working when so back then I worked at a law firm uh, almost 10 years ago, but and we had some students from now and then. And I was also a bit disappointed when they came to me. Let's say they should have written a memo on a certain topic, and they just copy and pasted information online and never critically investigated the information. And now I think that's the problem is even getting bigger and bigger. And I'm not sure if do universities pay attention to this, how to recognize credible sources, for instance, or no?
You know, the funny thing about Italian universities is that we
Yeah.
have oral exams.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So we sit in front of a professor and they open the book and they go like, okay, talk to me about this.
Okay.
So it's a bit difficult to use ChatGPT in that case because you
Yeah,
are
yeah, yeah.
literally talking to the professor.
Yeah.
So maybe Italian universities have found the solution to the use of ChatGPT. Who knows?
But they never
Um,
ask you critical thinking, I have to be honest.
yeah.
They would just
So
ask you
the problem is like they
about,
just like normally you just tell them what you're supposed to say, but there
yeah.
isn't much essay doing and stuff. So
Okay.
I think yeah,
You can
it's a different system.
you can put in an earpiece and which listens to everybody your teacher says. Then it's
So
linked to ChatGPT and it will reroute audio back to you, and you can just relay what ChatGPT says to you. Is that an idea?
to our Italian friends and students listening to this podcast, please don't repeat what Joost just suggested. This is not to be repeated at home. I repeat,
Will
this
also
is
be
not to
me
be
next
repeated at
action,
home.
by the way, but still.
Great. Thank
think
you, Giacomo.
I think a lawyer in the UK tried this and got reprimanded. So he wore an earpiece and he collected all the audio, all the voice, all the communications in the courtroom related to, I think it was ChatGPT, and then try to answer back based on what ChatGPT said to him. But it was discovered really early. So yeah, it's not only advice, but it's a stupid thing to do. But now, I mean, more seriously, if you ask me what to do against or how to regulate deepfakes, I would say, yeah, invest in education in a smart way, and learn people to think critically. It's not only useful against recognizing deepfakes or dealing with deepfakes, but it's also, I think it makes you better as a person to think critically.
Do you think it will really works? Because ideally, I agree with you, but then if I think about the attention of the people on Instagram, for example, they will never care of thinking critically and see if
Yeah,
the news is real or not.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
it was just an example from my side. But then there is also something that I think we are missing, and it was the ethical challenge related to the AI Act. Do you think it was well covered in the AI Act or not? There is an ethical part that is well. I can see your face. Please don't
AI ethics.
but
AI ethics, you mean? No, no, no. So I translate the word ethics to, no, I would frame it as follows, that you have technology. Technology is about what is possible. What can we do with things with AI, for example. Uh, Legal professionals, lawyers, legislators, they try to answer the question, um, what may we do with those technologies within a framework of the law? And an ethicist tries to look at it more in an abstract manner and says, well, what do we ought to do? What is, if we want to do good, how should we do it in relation to AI? And even aside from the law. And in an ideal world, the law 100% reflects a good outcome of an ethical discussion. Cross my fingers, but that's hopefully how it should work. Well, hopefully, because in reality, and I already said this, and maybe this ties into this as well, is that a law is written by humans. Humans are not perfect. They are the endpoint of lobbying. You have not only NGOs lobbying, but of course big companies, governments, etc. And at some point, the legislator has to balance all these interests and write something down. And I think everything you write down will displease a certain group of people or companies or whatever. So I understand it's a difficult job, and in this case, the AI Act I think is a monumental um, feed. It's really good what they try to regulate AI. We did it in Europe based on product regulation. That's a good idea. But what makes it really hard is that AI is also about the impact on fundamental rights. I mean, not only data protection or the right to private life, but also non-discrimination, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, human dignity, etc., etc. There are a lot of human rights. And when I think of human rights and fundamental rights, I use those terms as synonyms. That's when the ethical thing comes to play. Because if we think about, let's say, freedom of speech, that's really an ethical question. Because, yeah, my freedom of speech could be really a hindrance to you. For example, I can cuss you out, Giacomo, with all these horrible names. Really negative stuff, but at some point I can say, yeah, well, that's my freedom of speech, but at some point you are in the right to say, no, Joost, this is the red line, do not cross it, because now it becomes libel. And in this discussion, what are the boundaries of my rights and your rights, interests, etc.? Yeah, that's where an ethicist comes into play and tries to answer those difficult questions. And for me, I think that's a really hard thing to do, to answer ethical questions. You cannot do it on your own. You can only do it with others to speak about certain subjects. For example, hey, this AI might discriminate people. How can we try to make those negative impacts as small as possible? But then somebody could say, yeah, well, we shouldn't build the AI altogether because we don't want any discrimination in relation to the AI. So that's an ethical discussion, and the only way to have a discussion is with one or sorry, with two or more people. So back to the topic of ethics and the AI Act. I think the people who have to apply the AI Act, and especially in relation to fundamental rights, because the AI Act says in a lot of places, it's about safety, health, and the protection of fundamental rights. And now I'm talking about this last part. Yeah, how do you reconcile all these ethical discussions about non-discrimination, freedom of expression, etc., and put it into practice? I think it's really, really hard. And what I think is a bit, I wouldn't say cowardice, that's a bit too harsh, but how did the EU solve this? The EU legislator, they put this topic to the standardization forums. So uh, for those who read or haven't read the AI Act, it has a lot of reference to harmonized standards. Those are the details that will hopefully explain us, legal professionals in practice, how to apply the AI Act. And let's say regarding to human oversight, but also non-discrimination and other stuff, bias mitigation, the AI Act says, well, we shall deal with that topic in the standards. So in the AI Act, you cannot find any really practical guidelines about how to deal with an AI that might discriminate. You cannot really find an answer on that. Um, no, we have to wait for those standards. I've been told more than 120 people, experts, are thinking about this, and I just hope that they will do a good job. And I think it's a bit strange that it has been solved this way. I think it would be more the brave thing to do was just to provide as an EU legislator more guidelines already in the AI Act about how we should deal with fundamental rights and the ethical questions that surround it. But that's, I know it's difficult. The choice has been made. We outsource this to standardization, but I'm not really a big fan of that.
From a legal advisor point of view, are you kind of afraid that then like you're going to start with implementing specific norms and specific standards, for example, following the ISO 42001, and then the standards the European Union comes up with are a bit different or significantly different in specific fields, and then you're like, oh God, I have to change everything. Like, is there some fear, the one you were talking about before, or it's
Yeah.
just like you could have had it done before and now I have to wait again?
I think that's a risk. I know trying to be compliant with the ISO norm is more easy said than done. It is a lengthy process, and yeah, if you are in the process right now, focusing on a certain ISO norm, it could very well be that you have to evaluate things once the harmonized standards are published, and then you have to scratch your head and think, oh, maybe we did something wrong, or we have to change certain procedures. It is very well possible. It is a bit strange that I think, well, at least data protection authorities, but first and foremost, the European Commission says, well, even though those standards are not published yet, you should just try complying with the AI Act yourself. And that's, I think, a bit strange, and also can lead to legal uncertainty, because how can you expect people? You basically say to people, well, there is a law. It says something about safeguarding fundamental rights. We're not going to tell you how to comply with it. We will tell you, hopefully, via our standards somewhere in the future. And if you want to comply with the AI Act, well, just do your best and see what happens. I think it's a bit, yeah. This is the big problem of the AI Act. If it comes to fundamental rights, it's such a complex topic. It should have been articulated better in the text of the AI Act, and yeah. Hopefully, this is an answer to your remark, Rosalie. Yeah? Or I got sidetracked in my head. I understand the choice they made, because if you want to write down the end of the debate, let's say, to which degree is an AI allowed to discriminate? Because every AI discriminates in the technical sense of the words. I mean, it divides data into categories, etc. That is a form of discrimination, but is it also a form of unlawful legal discrimination? It's a really hard question to answer. if you want to write down the conclusion of those ethical discussions, etc., then the AI Act will never be finished. Then that will take years and years and years. So I think I understand why they took this route, but I'm not really happy with it. And yeah, it leads to legal uncertainty. We have the ISO norm, we have other norms. Yeah, it is a bit strange.
I'm talking about the need for deciding on like what paths to undertake. Collaboration is particularly important. And it is particularly important when you're talking about authorities in the specific countries, in member states, because of course, like at the end of the day, the implementation of things is going to be kind of oversaw by authorities. And you are currently doing something really cool, I think, if I'm not mistaken, with a specific number, which I did not know and I was really shocked, is more than 160 CPAs.
Yeah.
So, talking about harmonization and collaboration, what are you doing with this 160 plus, and how do you manage to get them all together and speak all together? I would really like to know.
Yeah, so to give the listeners an idea, so we're talking about the AI Act. We just talked about how hard it can be to apply these fake notions of fundamental rights and the ethical discussions around it. You're totally right, Rosalia. There are also supervisory authorities who also have to deal with those questions as part of their supervisory role. Um, there are several kinds of supervisory authorities mentioned in the AI Act, one of which is the so-called Market Surveillance Authority. I'm not referring to those, no, I'm referring to the so-called Fundamental Rights Authorities. They are mentioned in Article 77 of the AI Act, and they play a role when high-risk AI is deployed. So the high-risk AI mentioned in Annex 3 of the AI Act. Um, and the thing is that, yeah, we talked about fundamental rights. So, like I said, you will hear this a lot: safety, health, fundamental rights. This is like, what is the AI? What does it seek to protect? Safety, health, and fundamental rights. And the last part, fundamental rights, the EU legislator basically asks every member state to identify all kinds of supervisory authorities. That can be data protection authorities, but it can also be other authorities. Which of you, which of you guys in your country will deal with the subject of fundamental rights protection? And yeah, then I try to map them all. I came, yeah, at some point I counted more than 160 fundamental rights authorities. And it's a bit strange. Some countries only appoint one or two, but there are also countries, I think it was Austria, 20 or 30. And it can range from, of course, data protection authorities, but also authorities who have like this non-discrimination kind of role that they, in the Netherlands, for instance, you have this literally translated uh, uh, College of the Protection of Human Rights that deals mostly with non-discrimination issues. For example, if you are fired by your employer because of your gender or skin of your sorry, color of your skin, right? I mean, that's a direct form of discrimination, and you can complain at this forum. I think a lot of countries have such forums. But also election committees, even a defense committee. I'm not 100% sure why they are involved, because military AI is not within the scope of the AI Act. But yeah, maybe it's about the employees of the defense organization. Who knows? And all these organizations, and if you add them up, you come to this figure of 160 fundamental rights authorities, and they can all have their say in high risk AI and the supervision that comes along with it. So yeah, that is that is huge. So at one hand, we talked about it is hard to comply with the AI Act. if the standards are not known yet. But you also have to take into account 160 opinions, and hopefully they speak with the same voice. Who knows? Yeah, it is a huge task. And of course, DG Beetle, the knowledge platform that we have, we are not only mapping them, but we also want to, follow them and monitor them and explain to you as a user, what does let's say the Austrian DPA say about ChatGPT, and what does the Italian uh, uh, authority on the elections committee say about deepfakes in relating to casting votes, for example, so that you can have an idea of what's going on in Europe. And hopefully those supervisory authorities will use the platform as well, so they can learn from each other. But yeah, it's a monumental task. And these are only the fundamental rights authorities. And then you also have the market surveillance authorities, which can also be, I think, more than one per country. So yeah, if you're not involved in supervising the AI Act, then you're really old-fashioned. I mean, almost everybody has to play some role, one way or the other.
It's interesting that you say it, because I guess that AI can play a role in every single aspect of our lives. So
Yeah,
I think it
yeah,
makes sense that there is an authority. I mean, it's crazy if you think that it's always the same technology. That it's true. I mean, it's these aspects of our lives have been overlooked and overseen by specific authorities, and now that we have AI plus us, of course, they are going to be part of it. So, I mean, it's a monumental job that you're doing there, one that
yeah.
potentially only you could think of doing. But we will keep track
I
and
think
follow
we will
DGB.
use yeah, thank you very much. I think we will use AI also to monitor the AI authorities, probably. Otherwise it's just too much. It's too much for human to do.
Is that high risk?
Oh, I have to I have to check the annex. You guys are asking hard questions. I wasn't prepared for this. Let me think of it, and maybe I have a question, the answer. Hopefully, the next time
Yes,
I'm
because there will
around.
be a next time, because I will be waiting for knowing the result of all of this study. So you're more than
Awesome,
invited on Legal for Tech, the podcast, to tell
awesome.
us more about this great project.
Thank you.
And I promise, before we let you go, after almost 2 hours of conversation, which I was really savoring, so I'm super happy about this. Um, my question that I always ask all of our guests here is to suggest perhaps a podcast, a film, TV series, a book, a website, maybe. And yes, that's a plug to to help our listeners understand a bit more what you've been talking about. And you're more than welcome to maybe suggest some articles that you've recently written in specific types of topics that you thought maybe escaped our conversation so far.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's thank you for this question. Let me think. Let me think for a few seconds how to answer it. Well, um, I think what a topic we haven't addressed, and maybe we can talk about this another time, more in depth, is neurotechnology. So I think, yeah, I made a LinkedIn post about this a few months ago. Um, Also for the Rathenau Institute, I dived into this topic and learned a lot of stuff. And I try to put my learnings in a PDF, called carousel. So you can check out my most important findings in the LinkedIn post about neurotechnology. Because yeah, 2 or 3 years ago, I was introduced to deepfakes. I thought, yeah, okay, which direction is it going? And yeah, we already discussed in this podcast, it has a huge impact. And I think the same will be true regarding neurotechnology. Right now, it sounds a little bit science fiction, but that will change very soon. So yeah, I would, if I can refer listeners to something, to an online source, that would be um, one of which. So yeah, my post about neurotechnology. Another, yeah, you talked about books, or you asked about books. There is a book. I have it here.
I'm the book hunter, I have to be honest. So show me.
Yeah, I said, can you see? Oh no, sorry, it's
It's
blurred.
blurred.
Oh, too bad. I will tell you then. It's a book written by I think yeah, scientific journalist called James Vincent. Beyond Measure: The Hidden History of Measurements. And if you hear this topic, it is about why is a kilogram a kilogram? Why is a meter? And I know I'm not selling this well because maybe you think, wow, Joost, that sounds like a really boring topic. But no, if you read this book, you will realize it's a highly political topic because can you imagine in America, they don't say kilometer, but a mile? Why is that the case? And how much conflict has been going on? The eternal battle between those who want a kilometer and those who want a mile. It's really interesting. And there's also a chapter devoted to the standardization organizations. So the same organizations that deal with the harmonized standards regarding the AI Act. And you see, there is no such thing as neutral policy or neutral rules. Even the reason why a kilogram is a kilogram is highly political. And if you read this book, you will understand why, and you will hopefully this will help you to read the law, understand it, and don't be as scared as I was as a student when reading the law, because it is just rules made up by humans. There's nothing special to that. So yeah, I would recommend this book, Beyond Measure by James Vincent. And last but not least, yeah, I can plug, right? DG Beetle, has already been mentioned a few times. Yeah, so DG Beetle, long story short, is, I think, well, I'm the CEO, so why wouldn't I say it? It is the best platform, a knowledge platform for those who want to learn about case law, supervisory authority documents, all those digital laws we talked about, AI Act, Data Act, GDPR, etc. If you are a professional working in that EU digital legal realm, Digibeetle, I think, is a really useful platform. You can try it out for yourself for free, 30 days, and check it out. And we try to make sense of it all. And that's easier said than done. We want to tame the information overload. I mean, do you recognize these guys? On LinkedIn, you see so many interesting stuff, but it's almost like an avalanche of information. And especially one day later, maybe 1 week later, you think, yeah, oh yeah, I read that somewhere on LinkedIn, but where is it? I cannot find it. Well, we try to provide you a solution tackling this avalanche of information. So dgbeetle.eu, that is the website, and that's the end of my plug. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
I will second your plug by saying that our listeners will find the link to DG Beetle in the news letter and also in the links to this podcast, so in the show notes. So that said, I want to thank you so much, Joost Gerritsen, for joining us today. It was a great pleasure to finally meet you, and we really hope you're going to come back on this podcast in the future and tell us every single detail about every single one of those 160 plus authorities. I really want to hear that. And I'll be following DG Beetle too. So just saying, whatever news comes up, expect one of my messages calling you on the podcast. Well, that said, it was a great pleasure today. Thank you, Giacomo, for joining me and helping me in this interview.
Thank you, Rosie, and thank you to our guest.
And this was all from Legal for Tech, the podcast.